First of all, there's a Star Wars Galaxy poster. And here I have Batman. Okay, now, actually, they're reprints. Yeah, they're worth about $13 each. They're reprints from the comic shop in the mall. Okay, we had social distanced and mask and all that in the mall. The Legends Comics is a chain, and that's now in the mall here. So if Jim Jacon's still out there, now you can go to the Great Mall and go to the other Legends that's in the Great Mall. You get comic book stuff. So the Batman poster. It's very similar to one Tim used to have. Years ago. Very similar. Except I think it has a slightly different angle. But yeah. I think this is more of a shadow of the bad one. Anyway, so we this is a review of that. Disney. We finally got Disney Plus, or I got Disney Plus, so that I can finally see WandaVision. But they were giving away too much stuff and thumbnails on the internet, and they were kind of giving away what was going on in one of the trailers. I figured if I don't get it now and watch the 5 episodes now, someone is going to spoil it on the web. You're going to see a tagline going, "Oh, look at most amazing!" Okay, so Disney Plus, I can watch Soul and Mulan, Mulan's not going to be. That's not going to be fun. But I get to watch The Mandalorian. I haven't watched it yet. A number of other things. I said that with the Transformer thing that I wouldn't necessarily. I didn't want to do that originally because I thought it was going to influence the stories. But I figured I probably should watch some of it because it slips away through time and space. Kevin Smith did a big long thing on it. Didn't watch his thing yet. I watched I binge watched all 5 episodes so far of the show. So spoilers. The premise of the show. This is a WandaVision review. Before I go to that though, I was going off and on about during when I was doing the creature feature stuff, the creature feature unofficial creature features. I would watch it after they watched it. They have just they informed me via that I wasn't taken down or anything. It wasn't like that. They informed me directly that they had already reviewed the Milpitas Monster, and they said, "Oh yeah, look at our 2019 catalog. Here's a link to the Milpitas Monster. We already reviewed it." And Robert Burl showed up, and so I'll have to watch that later because they already reviewed it 2019. I didn't know, which is why it wasn't mentioned at all during the last time when we reviewed the Ants movie. We really didn't mention it that much because at that point we knew, yes, they had indeed had reviewed the movie, The Milpitas Monster, on Creature Features. So they had done it already. And they commented, they're like, "Wait a minute, we did this already." Go back and look at the catalog back from 2019. We did it. So they already did it. So it'd be kind of silly if I watched their review and then watch. I could do that later, I guess. But there's another one. This Trilogy of Terror was last week. I didn't get to see that one. Anyway, this is sort of housekeeping, but behind the scenes. And back to WandaVision, just to catch you up to everything. WandaVision is a strange idea. It pulls you out of the story. It's reminiscent of the old Silly Trek episode, in which they go to the TV planet, and the TV planet's being all messed up by the Sillians, and they have to go down there and stop them from colorizing everything. Whatever. TV planet, also explored in the newer Sillian books when they went back there in the Fantana and Clerks story. But yeah, it's similar to that. It's also similar to the Fallen Kingdom planet. TV planet kind of thing. It's also very similar to the stories of Capterra and that other planet, Key Draconis. Another TV planet story with another TV station thing going on, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, so it's like the Sillian stories. But you wouldn't necessarily know what those are. So, it's like Twilight Zone and Outer Limits with a little bit of The Truman Show, with that Jim Carrey show from Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, and The Truman Show, with a little bit of magic thrown in. It's Bewitched, it's Leave It to Beaver, it's Family Ties, it's Eight Is Enough, it's a number of other things. It's a little bit of Happy Days, just a little bit. It has a fun gag about the internet coming on. The guy looks at the internet, he's looking. It's like clunky because it's in the 90s, 80s or 90s. Oddly enough, they're using Commodore 64s, which were video game computers, to look at the internet. I'd like to know how they would have done that in the 80s. Anyway, the main premise that's really odd about this show is that does not work is that Wanda's character, being born in 89 or 90, she's 30 years old, would have no nostalgia for old TV shows at all. So the whole premise of the first 3 or 4 episodes would be like, no, she wouldn't get it at all. She wouldn't have that nostalgia at all. How many 30-year-olds out there are nostalgic for 50s TV sitcoms? They would be nostalgic for 80s TV sitcoms and 90s sitcoms with the 80s and 90s characters, because that's something that they just ended when they were born. They would go and watch the reruns of 80s and 90s sitcoms. They wouldn't be nostalgic for that stuff. Somebody over 50 totally would be. Kevin Feige and all those guys. They're my age. I would be nostalgic for that stuff. My parents are older, so I would be nostalgic for that. They're like, okay, I Leave It to Beaver, and watched endless reruns of that. Watched Family Ties in the 80s, 70s, the Brady Bunch in the 70s. A little bit of Brady Bunch in there. Yeah, I should say that too. There's a little bit of that. And then it becomes like an after-school special in the final one. But yeah, so yeah, it's all over the place. And Vision's character is played by a British dude who's in his late 40s, early 50s. So it's a little awkward. She's she's almost old enough to be his daughter. So it's really odd. How has Vision been resurrected? It's very odd. Is he a zombie? He has to be a zombie, right? Yeah, it's a zombie. She's controlling a zombie. That's got to be what it is. The twist isn't as much like... this is spoilers. The twist, this is what I thought of it. If you've seen the movie, the show, then yeah, this is going to be spoilers. This is what I thought going in. And yeah, some of the jokes land. The dialogue is really only vaguely what they would have said during that stuff back then. They do throw in snarky comebacks and callbacks and things, which they wouldn't have said back then, to let us know it's a modern, but it's not. And we're playing like it's the 50s, which was the case with Happy Days, which was filmed in the 70s, and they made it look like the 50s, and they referenced the 70s. So it's been done. The shows have done it that way. The Brady Bunch, like, referencing stuff from different periods, or Star Trek, the original series, having beehives that just come back, and go-go boots and stuff. It just came back. But they don't reference Star Trek in this. No, that's Marvel. They can't. But they could have referenced like Ancient Spider-Man or something. They didn't do that because it's more like the Jessica Jones thing toward the last 2 episodes so far. There's only been 5 so far. And yeah, the 50 stuff was just problematic. I enjoyed the 80 stuff because that would fit with the character that was 30. The 80 stuff was better, but the 50 stuff had some elements of Very reminiscent also of Erie, Indiana, more so than Stranger Things. Of course, Stranger Things is taken from the title Stranger Things Are Happening, which was an on-location episode. Yes, there was a Pine Hill person that was writing Stranger Things, but it wasn't us, some other Pine Hill person. Anyway, this story, however, looks like one of the other. But yeah, so right on. Groovy, man, that was from the 60s. Funky was a new word in the 60s, 70s. Groovy is from the 60s. Vinyl records. Yeah, I was born in 1970, so that was nostalgic for the year just before you're born, the 60s. Yeah, so the 60s and 70s, late 80s portions were fun. Yeah, it's just like and Vision wouldn't know about it either because they built him from the computer from Jarvis in Age of Ultron, and then part of all of Jarvis's bad side was made into Ultron, and Ultron was created, so there were like two of them together, different in the comic books, reinvented in the later comic books as of the movie, but different in the comic books. So in the comic books they were separate, and the Jarvis thing was a different thing. But for a movie, they had to visualize, and have James Spader playing the voice, of course. I'm Ultron. There is a hilarious Ultron thing from Red Letter Media, Ultron California, in which they took elements from California, from James Spader, and put it over the Ultron thing. So Californication thing, and he's like, oh yes, mating rituals. And it's like, it doesn't fit at all what he really said. But anyway, they didn't do that in this one. Yeah, the nostalgia kind of works. I thought the 50 stuff was a little odd just because, I figured she was conjuring stuff because immediately she's controlling like the narration and the editing and all that. Very similar to a trans tech as well, if the or a holodeck or a kind of thing. Cosmic background radiation is mentioned, so there's cosmic background radiation and television signals in New Jersey, and they're referencing the passage of time in there and everything as they scan the anomaly. No other Avengers show up, which is odd. You'd think they would see this event as like a massive spike in radiation from there and send in, the Avengers. Somebody. The blip was kind of retconned so that it was 3 years later, not 6. I didn't know how they kind of retconned that. So is this a different universe than even that one? Because they said 6 years. I think they said 5 years later in Endgame. Yeah, it was 5 years later. Yeah. So they could have Tony Stark's 5-year-old in it. 4.5. Also have then they did Spider-Man Far From Home. That's the last official one. Obviously this is supposed to be tied in a little bit to Black Widow, but they didn't release Black Widow yet. It's still floating out there. They haven't released it yet. So they kind of, the reference of a movie there's now. Hopefully there's not enough from, you don't have to have seen this to see In the Mountains of Doctor Strange 2 in the Mountains of Madness. This is the next one. Or Thor Love and Thunder doesn't come into play either. Or Black Panther. Although they did show a clip of the Panther in his outfit. They showed the little beginning Marvel Studios thing. I was like, oh, Chadwick Boseman. Oh yeah, he died. Chadwick Boseman died. It kind of sucks. But yeah, come on, man. Chadwick Boseman died. So they saw the picture of him. Yeah, he died of cancer. I think he had cancer. Yeah, that sucks. Anyway, so he isn't going to be in Black Panther 2. It's going to have to be the chick. There's going to be too many chicks. So, yeah, except for that, the standard story is apparently Wanda has trapped Vision's reanimated corpse in a virtual town called Westfield. Similar in a way to Westworld, that remake of the 70s Westworld. In a sense, it's in a television show as well, which is what Truman Show was copying, the Westworld idea, but without cowboys. Westworld isn't a cowboy thing. But, okay. Yeah, so I was gonna wrap up my Wanda Vision review. What I thought of it, that kind of thing. Yeah, they, by filming it in different formats and having fun with earlier television somehow, and having her use analog signals to do that. Another thing that she wouldn't necessarily do because she's 30. She wouldn't do that stuff because, yeah, she'd be like, no, I want to make it modern and in HD and stuff. She's 30, not 50. Yeah, the aged up twins thing was funny. The babies to twins, and then they're 10 because they age up and they have powers. So that does beg the question: is everybody in the town under her influence? Because the one dude in the computer lab was under their influence. Do they know that time is passing instantly and stuff? And they killed the puppy in the azaleas, and that's messed up. And then you have the black lady who, it wouldn't be in a 50s sitcom. She would have some menial job in a 50s sitcom because yeah, they were mean then. But it turns out that she's related to Ransom from S.H.I.E.L.D. But it's a different organization than S.H.I.E.L.D. They give it a different name. Is she related to Captain Marvel and the lady from that? If that's supposed to be the next Captain Marvel, then no, she acted more like an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. person, but they called it something else. Different acronym. Yeah, they have this dog. Story arc, the dog ate us enough type of / holiday specials, / Hallmark specials / sad reunion story thing going on. Playing in the last 2 episodes. Because the dog dies. In the story. Is she programming all of their minds so that they're all under her influence, and how is she doing this? And then they sort of have her brother show up at the end because they're making fun of the whole like absent brother from Happy Days. They're throwing back to Happy Days, but it's still the 80s or 90s in the story. So they throw back. They did the reverse of the Cunningham. See, in the original Happy Days, Richie Cunningham had an older brother, and he disappeared. The first season is never mentioned ever again at all. Never mentioned. That's the disappearing brother. In this case, it's the reappearing brother. So does she conjure him up too, or take over someone's mind to bring them up too? This is very similar to what was going on in the Wonder Woman movie, DC, where Wonder Woman used the wishing stone to conjure up her boyfriend in the body of some other dude who was totally unaware of it, and she basically, rapes a guy. And then gets her, denounces her wish, turns it back, and then meets the guy at the end. He's not aware that he did all this stuff. If it was the other way around, it would be really messed up, and this movie would be creepy. It already is creepy, but it would be worse. But in the case of this one, it's is she kind of doing that too? Is she overpowered? They mentioned politics and terrorists. Is she being a terrorist? Is Wanda terrorizing them? They throw that in there, but I think the story's supposed to take place in 2023 if it's 5 years after this other story from 2018. So yeah, so the dates are a little weird, and they do show them appearing from the blip. Blip in the movie, and it's if she's controlling their mind, she's basically a villain. She's basically an antagonist. Why is she why is the other guy, why is Vision there? The Mind Stone's not there anymore. It's gone, right? So how did she do that stuff? So there's not some secret cabal controlling the television world unless she got her brother to help her, but didn't he die in the other story? They just recast, as they said in the story. And what's weird is in the comic books, they're actually the twins, the Scarlet Witch and the Quicksilver, are the children of Magneto. And in the other timeline, they're not in this one, which is they should be the children of Magneto. Magneto is an older man in the story, so maybe the grandchildren of Magneto at this point, the way they structured it. Yeah, so. But in First Class, Magneto, but in the other timeline of the X-Men, the reboot, Magneto only had one child who was killed in the woods, and it wasn't no twins. In the 90s. So it's kind of weird. Yeah, if she's controlling them, she's basically evil. And if she made a zombie version of her boyfriend to have him stay there forever, that's also evil. See, in the case of the Transformers Ties to a Meltdown, just watched, the mind and personality of as the sister saw it, and some of her friends saw it, the character of the Bumblebee, she is her mind is put into Bumblebee with his permission, and the mind is in there. It's kind of similar, except in this case, he agreed to it, and also Jen, the sister, the Buster character, agreed to it too. They both did. But at the end of this Transformer story that I did, the bad guys defeated, and they blast the mind energy, and she goes to the realm to meet Alpha Trion, and he basically gives her the ability to spread her knowledge to the rest of her friends and figure out, to come up with a cure, to come up with a possible solution to the space virus. So yeah, so even though the character was killed almost by accident because the Chiron character attacked the hospital, and didn't know who she was. But the Ingrams had already been copied at that point. She was dying of cancer. They didn't say in the episode, but that was similar to the actual version. But I didn't want to have it be like with all the rumored pieces of this WandaVision story. I didn't want it to be like WandaVision and have her having resurrected her dead sister. That would have been weird, and being a robot and not being aware that he's a robot, because that would have been really messed up. I kind of hinted at that's they were gonna. I kind of knew the little tidbits. Knew too much. Had to watch the WandaVision tonight to make sure that I didn't that it was pretty much spot on what it was going on. Except it wasn't a nefarious other organization doing the whole thing. It was just Wanda. Well, that doesn't make sense that it's just her and maybe her brother. There's got to be some nefarious force that's also doing that. Otherwise, how would she generate all that power? They implied that she could have destroyed Thanos herself. It's like, really? No. Squirrel Girl, though, could totally jack him up. It's canon. Anyway, the idea that she resurrects him as kind of a zombie in the story is kind of messed up. Whereas in the Transformer thing, I only knew tidbits of what the WandaVision thing was about when I wrote the Transformer thing. Didn't want to rip off the WandaVision thing. I didn't end up ripping it up at all, because my story ends with them realizing, yes, they have to accept their grief and give up the memory engrams, but they copied the memory engrams and personality. They can't just have her become another person via a transformer. That would be weird. Instead, they pass on the knowledge to everyone, and they're better for it, and they remember things. So that's a better ending than So in order for this WandaVision story to be more like the Transformer story, it would have to end with Wanda deciding, yes, I should give Vision up, and he should just disappear again. Yeah, it should be like, yeah, she should, if she was actually a good guy, that's what she should do. She should say, all right, you've gone. Wanda's brother comes back, and yeah, it's like, kind of like that. But yeah, I only had hints. I've seen the trailers before tonight when I watched the WandaVision story. And yeah, it's not like the Transformer thing at all. It's more disturbing and weird than the Transformer one. The Transformer one is actually nice and isn't. Yeah, but I did disable comments even on when I posted twice the Transformer thing, but I won't on this video. And just to say that this is kind of meandery, but there was other cleaning house things. So that's